Madam Speaker, I've heard of superstar women who manage to somehow do it all. They manage an amazing career, they sew their own buttons, they make home-cooked meals, they tutor their brilliant children, and they somehow still manage to look Instagram-worthy. And yes, these amazing unicorns apparently exist, and I don't know how they do it. On weekdays, I still struggle to leave office on time to be at home for my child. And on weekends or weeknights, if unfinished business to clear, like writing this speech for instance, I cannot do anything without husband and domestic helper playing tag team with me. And the year my father fell ill and my kid was just born was also the first year that I took up the NMP position, on top of all of my other work. And I could only do what I do because I had supportive teams at work, I had state-subsidized infant care near my home, I had my mom and my sister taking turns being caregiver to my dad, and we could afford external part-time caregivers when my mom needed a break. So I love doing my work, but I know I would definitely have had to drop out of the workforce if I didn't have access to an ecosystem of paid and unpaid help supporting me at a home level, as well as at broader societal level. So if we want to see more women keep their families together and keep contributing to the economy and keep rising to represent us on corporate boards and political positions, we do have to design an inclusive ecosystem of caregiving that all women can access and afford. A few weeks ago after budget season, I received an online message from a woman I had never met. She wasn't asking for any answers and she wasn't requesting for any favors. She was just hoping for someone to feel her present struggle and care for her future story. She wrote, "I'm a mother to 4 boys married to a civil servant, but you have no idea how hard life has been for us. We keep on trying and striving and doing our best to survive, not for ourselves, but for our boys. I wake up every day at 4:30 in the morning to cook because my children cannot eat the food from school, and I've been packing their lunch for more than 10 years. I rush to cook, clean, and get my kids ready for school. We live far away, and my husband sends them to school each morning, but I will rush to my office to work, then I'll fetch my kids home by bus. I cook lunch, and I sit down with my kids for revision, and I check their homework, and I'm not well educated, so I also have to engage tutors for the boys. But I can only do so much. My business doesn't earn very much, but I do it anyway just for the kids, to pay for tuition fees, to help my husband out. And yes, the story is long and boring and tiring, but that's how I feel too. Sometimes I will cry myself to sleep and feel that I have failed as a mom who cannot provide enough for her children, and as an only daughter that cannot provide enough for my own mother. Bills and more bills to pay, problems after problems, it gets very frustrating. And I wish someone could listen to what I have to say and understand my plight. But sadly, no one is there, and we only have our family, just us. I wanted to bring her voice into this house so that we can get a sense of what at least one real woman on the ground might be thinking as she listens to us discuss, in theory, how to affirm that every woman's contributions and support her aspirations. Her story is not representative of every Singapore woman's story, but I believe it does have enough threads within to bind it to a wider tapestry of even tougher tales out there. For many women, it is difficult to aspire about a faraway future when the demands of this present feel so overwhelming. Planning for the future is a luxury only those of us who have the privilege of time and mental bandwidth can afford. And yes, a woman who has cash to spare in her household budget can have the option of purchasing the spare time and mental bandwidth she needs in the present to improve her future prospects. She can hire a domestic worker to clean the house and cook the meals. She can pay for laundry to be pressed and groceries to be delivered. She can hire school buses to do the fetching and tutors to do the revising. She can engage the best live-in nurses for her parents and all-day preschools for her kids. And she can pay for financial planners to strategize the growth of her savings and investments. So yes, theoretically, a woman can outsource all the jobs in her extensive portfolio of home-based work to an army of many to do. But many women don't. Many women take on either the full or partial portfolio of caregiving work onto themselves. And for some women, it is a deliberate and happy choice. They may have the wealth to pay for external help, and they are personally convicted that some types of domestic work, particularly caregiving for their aging parents or young children, are too sacred to be outsourced to strangers. They derive great personal satisfaction from being a full-time worker at home rather than a full-time worker in the office. And they may take a financial hit for their choice, but they have enough financial reserves and social support to feel at peace about their future. But for other women, it's not that simple. They may share similar values as the first group and embrace the meaning of caregiving as well, but their decision to be a caregiver may be driven more out of a lack of financial capital to engage paid help, or a lack of social capital to engage alternative sources of unpaid help. They may also have done their math and compared income they would derive from working versus cost they would pay for external help, and then they sacrifice a job they enjoy to be a caregiver because it is just the more affordable option. They do want to care for their loved ones, and they do so either on a full-time or part-time basis, but they're also clear that they want to go back to office work someday, either because they have personal goals to fulfill or because they know they just need the income. So my focus today is on how we can better support the aspirations and future of this second group of women. Statistically, women tend to shoulder a significantly larger portion of the burden of unpaid, invisible caregiving work, much more so than men. According to the Ministry of Manpower's report on the labor force in Singapore for 2015, 80,848 women between the ages of 25 to 54 left the labor force due to family responsibilities compared to just 4,439 men. In 2014, it was 70,060 women who left compared to 3,564 men. So the number of women who leave the visible paid labor force to enter the invisible and unpaid labor force of domestic caregiving is a big deal because firstly, the labor is not free. It comes at great individual cost. Presently, we have many older women today, widows or single unmarried women who currently face financial insecurity because they sacrifice their lifetime earnings and savings to care for dependents at the peak of their working years. Dr. Kanwaljit Soin observed in a 2012 interview with the Council for Third Age that usually because women live longer than men, the woman will be looking after her husband through his last illness, spending most of their savings on him. And after he dies, she's without a spouse, with little material resources left. And there are about 5 times as many widows than widowers in Singapore. Secondly, there is also a great societal cost, particularly for a small country like Singapore. Our female labor force participation rate of 58.6% in 2014 was lower than in most other first world countries at similar income levels like Denmark at 75% and Switzerland at 79%. So in a tight labor market like ours, especially given our low birth rates, we do have to increase our female labor participation rate. But if we want more of our women to stay in the labor force or re-enter it after their time of caregiving, we must provide better systemic support for their work of caregiving. So I have 3 requests. My first request is on behalf of the financial futures of full-time home-based caregivers. The 2015-2016 CPF Advisory Panel Recommendations Report expressed worry about the financial vulnerability of our female caregivers who leave the workforce and are completely reliant on their husband's CPF payouts for their retirement. Should these caregivers outlive their husbands, they would have no sustained income. Currently, there is a system of voluntary CPF transfers from income earners to non-earning caregivers that is incentivized by the government. And there were 86,198 top-ups made in 2015. But if we have an estimated 210,000 caregivers here, then it does imply that there are still many caregivers who do not receive CPF retirement savings for their work. MP engineer Dr. Lee Biwa has suggested having a system of automatic transfers of an opt-out option from an income-earning spouse to a non-income-earning caregiver spouse's account under the retirement sum topping-up scheme. If voluntary transfers don't climb significantly, then I think we have to consider this intrusive option. I also wonder if we can encourage income-earning spouses, children, relatives, or even friends to contribute to some kind of caregiver development account. It allows a community to practically honor the work of their caregivers that they love, as well as encourage the caregivers to take care of their own well-being and development. It could be something like how the government currently encourages parents to save for their child's future through the child development account. The state can offer a capped one-for-one matching grant over a fixed time period, and the money can similarly only be taken out by the caregiver for a select range of self-care or self-development activities. To ensure that claimants are true caregivers rather than opportunists, claimants should be required to identify the range of activities of daily living that they do so on behalf of a care recipient. This initiative could also be limited only to claimants or care recipients who do not employ foreign domestic workers. My second request is on behalf of the career aspirations of lower-income mothers. It's really difficult to go on job searches or training workshops without first getting access to alternative caregiving help. So I echo MP Cheryl Chan's call to relook the chicken and egg situation some of these mothers are caught in, where they need to be employed before receiving state subsidies for childcare. The barrier faced by some of these women for finding a job or keeping a job is in fact the lack of affordable childcare. So I hope we can help them in their search for employment by removing the requirement of employment for women with household incomes lower than $2,500. We could explore granting job seekers from lower income households a limited number of months of childcare subsidies upon application. And after that, they can show periodic proof that they are on a genuine job search by showing evidence of registration with job matching agencies like E2I or job applications with potential employers. Such transitional support will be a valuable boost to their morale and motivate the search for stable work within the time frame of the given childcare subsidies. My third request is a long-term and more drastic one. I appreciate MOS Lam's sharing yesterday of the ministry's efforts to improve access to caregiving and respite services. But still, I believe as long as we leave caregiving as a problem primarily for individual families to resolve, then we will continue to see individual women become the solution by leaving paid employment. And given how fast our dependency ratio is rising and how much we need our women to stay in the workforce, I believe somewhere down the road we have to design a caregiving infrastructure that provides universal access to caregiving services for our elderly, children, and people with disabilities. A national system of caregiving will not only allow women providing unpaid care at home to return to the workforce with more confidence, it will also be most impactful on the fortunes of the low-income and sandwich class families who need these resources most. I don't bring this up lightly because I know it's an extremely costly, complex, and controversial venture, and the staffing costs alone would be huge. And I imagine such a system cannot be supported purely by tax dollar paid professionals alone, but by an army of unpaid volunteers as well. So at the risk of laying yet another burden of care on us women, there is a controversial solution I've heard before which I believe we'll have to debate about in due course. In 2015, Mr. Ho Kwon Peng argued in his IPS Nathan lecture that we should consider universal female conscription as a solution to the overwhelming flood of future needs we will soon face in community care. He proposed that while Singaporean men serve a 2-year military regime, Singaporean women could serve a 3 to 5 month community conscription during their break between graduation and entering the workforce. He imagined female national service women as a force that could support our civil defense, home team, community, and healthcare institutions. And he believed that female national service women could really make a difference in service to the country's oldest, weakest, and poorest, providing support in caregiver relief, elder care, or even childcare, while lessening our dependence on foreign caregivers. The possibilities for societal impact could be stunning, and so will the personal costs. Young women will have to give up their time and opportunity and freedom, but this is the very same price we have asked our young men to pay all these years for military conscription. Universal female conscription may not be a popular idea for now, but in stark contrast, the idea that national service is noble work and excellent character-building opportunity for fathers, husbands, boyfriends, or sons is. So given that our men have sacrificed so much over the first 50 years to serve and defend our country, it only seems fair for us women to also keep an open mind and a willing heart over the next 50 years to answer the call to serve and defend the communities we love should that request ever be made of us. I don't know if female community-based conscription will ever be a reality, but I do know that if it ever does come to pass, I would be very glad to have my own daughter serve the nation that way. And if I'm not too old by then and this country will still have me, I'll be equally glad to serve alongside. I want to close my speech by bringing us back to that first woman's story. It was she who inspired me to speak on this motion because reading her message, while I felt for her sorrows, I also felt great admiration for her strengths. Women like her wrote the book on hard work and resilience. No matter how hopeless things feel, how tired they are, how much tears they have shed, they know how to get up, wipe the mess, and soldier on like the warriors that they are. She is struggling, but she isn't giving up. Not yet. Many women like her are already fighting for their aspirations and their families' futures. They just want to know whether we are in our own trenches fighting for them too. Because just knowing that we are together in this fight makes their fight feel a little easier. And I believe that many of us from both sides of the house do share the hope to help our women. We and the rest of this nation can be that larger family beyond their own that they need. There are very real barriers of time and bandwidth and privilege and bureaucracy that stand in their way that are very difficult for them to overcome by themselves. So let's give our fighting women a fighting chance at their dreams of the future by meeting them halfway and breaking down those walls for them, a brick at a time. I support this motion.